Welcome to WP Crafter Unscripted, the live stream show and podcast for WordPress non-techies, helping you navigate and solve the challenges for your WordPress websites and online businesses. With your hosts, Adam and Paul.
How's that for an introduction to this brand new audio experience that we're bringing here to WP Crafter? And so this is me. You guys know me, and I've got Paul right here as well, and he'll be my co-host for this new audio experience that we're going to do here on the channel. So this is episode 0, and this is called WP Crafter Unscripted. And so I think yesterday we did a kind of a test run of this. So this is kind of like the real first test run here on YouTube. And I'm excited about what this is going to be. Essentially, we're going to be doing an audio experience here, but we're going to live stream it. And then we're going to make it down to audio only version and get on iTunes. Something I've been wanting to do for a long time is have a podcast, but I couldn't do it alone. I needed to have someone to do a podcast with me, and that's where Paul comes in. And for those of you that are not familiar with Paul, well, I'll tell you, I've known Paul for 6 years. We've been friends for 6 years. He is British. Is that the proper way of putting it? He's English, British.
You can say that, yep.
Yeah, we could say that, but I've known Paul for many years now, and a lot of people know Paul. Paul is, by trade, probably one of the most skilled designers that you didn't know was designing the stuff that you used. He's worked with so many different iconic WordPress brands, and as well, the car that my wife drives, he actually did a lot of design work for that company. English company, right? Land Rover. That was really cool to find out. But there's also something that I'm going to get Paul to reveal. He told me that he's actually a Guinness Book of Records record holder. I remember when I was a kid, I had the Guinness Book of Records, and it would be, a new edition every year. You see the person with the longest hair, the person with the longest fingernails. You got to tell us, I'm going to pass it over to you. You got to tell us why or what, you got to tell us what your record is.
Well, first of all, thanks, Adam. That was a really, really nice intro. So I hope my mum's watching, because based on that intro, she's going to be really proud. She'll be like, oh, you're doing all right, aren't you, Paul? Well done. But no, I will come back to the world record in a minute, actually. But yeah, absolutely. It's funny how we got started on this. We spoke about this as an idea like back in February or something. When you I reached out to you actually about Presto Player, because I was really interested in your collaboration with Andre, the main developer at Presto Player, and we just got chatting, and it had been a while since we were chatting, and then you were like, hey Paul, we have a quick call, and we had a call, and then we decided to do this, and then some months later we finally got around to it, and here we go.
Everything takes time. Yeah.
Episode 0, basically, isn't it? I mean, we had episode -1 yesterday, where we went live in the Facebook group and did a totally impromptu episode, which was really fun, and it broke the nerves as well, because we're both new to, like, Adam, you're sort of new to live streaming. You do it a bit, but you're new to the podcasting thing, and for me,
with someone else, doing it with someone else, I can do it myself, but then with someone else, so like talking over you and stuff like that. We'll have to work on that.
I think we've done a good job of our lighting, though, don't you think? I mean, look how coordinated we are. You've got,
that's right.
We've got the brand colors and all that sort of stuff. And look, we've got a nice intro and stuff like that. Yep.
Very nice.
And we've got our logo and all that sort of thing. But yeah, back to, I guess I only told you just before we went live that I'm a Guinness World Record holder, didn't I? So, and I wouldn't tell you what it was for. But I will reveal it now. The certificate is here on the wall. I can't turn the camera to prove it, but I'll prove it another time. I'll get it off the wall and show you. But basically, a couple of years ago, I had a client which was Loughborough University, and we were doing design and UX for them. And I had a meeting over there, and they were like, hey, Paul, when you come to the meeting, could you do me a favor and wear a Christmas jumper? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I was going to wear one anyway. It's Christmas. So I came in my Christmas jumper, and then thousands of us were kind of put into this big area, and then cordoned off so we couldn't get out. And one by one, we went through this little thing where we were then in another cordoned area so that we couldn't go around and come back in. And they counted us, and we collectively won the world record for the most people in one space, all wearing Christmas jumpers at the same time. So there you go. What an achievement.
Yeah, that's one to definitely tell the grandkids one day. How many people were wearing? So you're saying jumper? I'm in the U.S. We use different terminology for things. Is that just like an outfit, a jumper, like a jumpsuit type of thing? Is that what you're?
No, a jumper is a sweater. So
just an ugly Christmas sweater.
Yeah, a picture of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on the front or something like that. I've just checked the number on the certificate. 1,175 was the final count. So I think, for a while I've been worried that it's going to get broken, but thanks to this pandemic, I think there's no chance of that. It wouldn't be a cool idea at the moment to do that. So I reckon I'm safe for a year or two at least until someone feels brave enough to try it again. So...
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. We'll have to see if we do like a WP Crafter event and maybe have everyone wear a Christmas sweater and try to get like 2,000 people there and then just crush your record. And then we would have something as a community to show off, dethrone you.
As long as I'm there, then I can re-break my own record. So that would be cool. But yeah, there's another thing I've got to tell you, Adam, because when we had this because obviously this is our first intro, so we've got a couple of new gadgets like this intro video and all this kind of stuff. But I commissioned that video to someone in a kind of freelance place, and I wrote them a description. I was like, hey, so what I need is like a 2-minute video, some cool video. I got to cool music. I got to choose the music, so I really like that kind of hip-hop music, and I really like the guy's voice and everything. I was like, yeah, man, that would be really cool. So I wrote this description. So what I want is in the last 30 seconds, and then do the intro. And he was like, okay. And then he sent me the file today, actually this morning. I was like, oh, brilliant. We've got the file just in time. But I just got to show you just 10 seconds of what I received. So if you remember, just remember, the instruction was for the last 30 seconds, then the intro, yeah? So let's just see if this works. Let's just see if we can pull this in. Okay.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Last 30 Seconds. If you've been listening on the podcast and enjoy...
That's Fiverr for you.
It was Fiverr, but... The guy found it hilarious. He was like, I'm so sorry. And the thing is about Fiverr, if you ever use Fiverr, it's really good actually. Right?
Yeah.
But one of the things about Fiverr is when you post your brief, all the formatting is totally messed up. So, the person reads it as like one long stream of paragraph. So when I read my brief back, I thought, I can see what happened. There, but it was so funny. And I thought I need to show you that, but I wrote you a little message in Facebook earlier. I was like, check this out, this happened. But then I deleted all my messages before you read them, just so I could show you live on air. But yeah, so that's a bit about me, a bit about my Guinness World Record, which I'm very proud of. Really excited to start this new project with you, Adam. And I think one of the things that we're planning to do on this, it is a WordPress-based channel. It's a WordPress-based podcast and live stream. It's called WPCrafter Unscripted because we don't know... We know the things we're going to talk about, but we don't have a script. We're going to just have a conversation, listen to what see what the comments are saying and that kind of thing. And
this is also contrary to like what the normal videos are on the channel that are scripted. And so it's like restricted and scripted. This is unscripted.
Unscripted, yeah. And there's certain things that we're not going to talk about as well. So there's lots of WordPress podcasts out there that talk about people in the community and talk about acquisitions and stuff like that. We're going to stay away from that stuff because there's already plenty of that out there. We're going to be more in line with your existing YouTube channel, which is, hey, I'm a person with a website. What next? Or I'm an agency who does websites for people. What do I do? So we're helping people with tools, helping people with techniques, helping people navigate problems and strategy, exactly, that kind of thing. And we've got a topic for today, which we're talking about, which is something really on a lot of people's minds at the moment, which I don't know if you want to say what the topic of today is, Adam. And
Yeah, well, I hope people don't mind that what I put as a title for the live stream, I put "This Is It," and that could be interpreted multiple ways, right? That could be interpreted as "This is it, I'm done," or "This is it, this is the thing I've been talking about in the Facebook group that we have for WP Crafter," and that was more the intention of it. So the way these episodes are going to work is we're going to be here live every Friday at 11, but we might change that time to see what works best for you guys, the people listening. And this will be live, but then there'll also be the audio version, and the live version, it stays here on YouTube forever. And we are planning on doing is tackling one topic and going through that one topic. It's going to be not visual, meaning we're not going to be showing like a computer screen and like click here and do that. That's not what it will be about. And then after we talk about something, then we're going to do something really exciting called the plugin fight, but we'll get to that when it's time for that. So for this episode, the one topic that we're going to go through is Core Web Vitals. And so I'm just going to introduce what Core Web Vitals are for those of you that might not be familiar. I know I've been mentioning it for months, what Core Web Vitals is, and it's not just me, it's been all over the internet. So essentially, what Core Web Vitals is Google. It's a Google thing. And so Google has introduced this new concept called Core Web Vitals. Basically, it's not a new concept, but them saying that these particular website vitals are going to be what we use to decide the quality of your website. And we're going to take the quality of your website and decide whether we're going to even suggest your website when someone goes to Google and performs a search where your website might be a candidate to come up as a result. So you might not have known, but there's multiple web vitals, and these are different aspects that Google is measuring on your website. But these are the core ones. These are the ones that Google says, I want you to focus on. And in exchange, if you focus on this, that would mean that most likely your website's giving a great experience for someone that visits your website. So Google's after, I don't blame Google, by the way, for wanting the websites they recommend to be quality. I mean, they do the same thing on YouTube. So if you put a video up on YouTube, you can subscribe to a channel and it will be there for you. But there's also a suggestion engine, and the factors that go into whether your video gets suggested is the quality of the video. And they decide, is it a quality video? How long do people stay watching? Do they interact? Does it make someone want to leave YouTube altogether? So they have those kind of vitals of a video, and it's the kind of the same concept with these core web vitals that they have for measuring whether or not your website's any good or not. Now, the scary thing about it that I don't think people realize, everybody's heard of like GT metrics. You go to that website and you pop your URL in, and it's a really controlled environment, and they test your website. Well, though, the difference with Core Web Vitals is every time someone visits your website in the Google Chrome web browser, Google's collecting these core web vitals on your website. So if someone is in, say, a part of the world where the internet's poor and all of that, and they go to your website, well, Google's capturing that information as well. So now when you go to test your website in these core web vitals, there's two batches of information that you're going to see. And one of them is called lab data. That's when you go and you test it on their website. And then there's field data, which is terrifying, right? Field data is just when someone is visiting your website and they're using Google Chrome. So all of this is kind of being calculated and cataloged and scored. So long story short, last year Google says core web vitals are going to be the thing. They set a deadline. This is the deadline if you want to improve your core web vitals and receive a benefit when we're suggesting websites. But then they push that deadline out. And I don't know the new deadline. I think it's I think it might be this month, and they'll probably push it out again. So anyways, that's the kind of gist of what Core Web Vitals are.
Yep, and what we're going to try and cover today, because the problem with Core Web Vitals is it's an absolutely huge topic. Like we could sit here and talk for like 3, maybe 4, maybe all day, actually, about all the individual different techniques that you could use with Core Web Vitals. But we're not. We're just going to today, I mean, we'll probably come back to it. I really think we'll definitely, because performance is a thing constantly. What we're going to try and tackle is how you should approach it, just conceptually. Like, what should your mindset be about Core Web Vitals? If you own your own website, should you be worried, or should you see this as an opportunity? If you're an agency, what can you do to stop those tons of emails coming in from those clients the moment the spam bots start, or the spammers start sending them reports of their website saying how slow it is, and how they should hire this person instead of you to work on their website for them. So one of the things about Core Web Vitals is 100% is performance. So we're going to cover that. But first, we need to say a big thank you to our sponsor. So we've got a sponsor for the first time on the channel, and it's
first time.
And it's our friends at Cloudways. And Cloudways is a hosting provider. It's one of probably the most hassle-free ways for you to get your hands on a virtual private server, a VPS server, that gives you full control of the performance of the capabilities at the root of your site. So if you go to a managed WordPress host or something like that, you're kind of just given what you're given. If you go to shared hosting, you're given a small slice of a small slice of a cake. If you go and get a dedicated server, you need to spend an absolute fortune. And then there's these things in the middle called virtual private servers, VPS servers. And Cloudways is probably it is the easiest way to get on that train and start getting yourself a VPS server, which you can scale up when you need more power. And then if you need to scale back down, you can just buy another server, move your site into that, and turn the old one off. You pay by the hour in most of the situations with Cloudways, and you can get servers from as little as $10. But I think the best value starts in their new premium servers that they've just got from DigitalOcean. Adam, have you tried the new premium ones from DigitalOcean?
You know, I want to try it. I've been using the service with Vulture High Frequency, but now they have DigitalOcean's. Yeah, so DigitalOcean has it's their response to Vulture High Frequency. So it's like their Vulture High Frequency. I got to definitely try that one out. Another interesting thing. My video went out. We'll see if my video comes back. My audio's, I'm assuming, working fine.
Yeah, you jumped
technical difficulties.
That's what happens in live, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. That's live. Well, my everything looks like it's.
I'm sure.
It's all working here, so I'll have to take a look at that in a moment. But Cloudways has a Core Web Vitals testing tool. I'm not sure. I don't think many people actually know about this. It's awesome. Here, I'll see if I can pull it up on the screen here. But yes, they got a Core Web Vitals testing tool, which, as we're talking about Core Web Vitals, it would be nice to go over there and test your website and see how it performs.
Absolutely. And you can also we're going to get a new coupon for you with Cloudways, which should give you 3 months, a 20% discount at Cloudways. And one of the things is as well with Cloudways, if you haven't used it before, oh, you're back. There you are.
No, my video feed's not working for me.
Yeah, you can
This is
refresh.
hilarious.
You can refresh if you want and come back in. I can just basically with Cloudways, if you've not used them before, then one of the things they do, because a lot of people are like, oh, a VPS, that sounds a bit scary. What do I do about that? But if you haven't used one before, then what you can do is just contact them when you get your account, and they will migrate your first website onto their system for free for you. So you can do that. And Adam is back. Are you moving?
Yes, I'm back.
Yes.
Thank goodness.
I didn't want to do the whole show by myself, Adam. That was my actual worst nightmare. So
we're using Restream for this production, and so what happens ends up happening. But it's good. I could just click on refresh and come right back in. That was awkward, but that's all right. We can think quick on our feet for sure. Think quick on our feet. But many people here on the channel have and use Cloudways. It's a fantastic service. So let's get into it about this Core Web Vitals.
Yep. So I think the first question really is it an opportunity or is it something to be really scared of? Because I know at the beginning when it came out, everybody was terrified. Hey, my site is going to get dropped out of Google and that's it. That's the end of my business. It's not been a bad year already. Now that's going to happen in May. I remember there was the May deadline. And like you said, I think it's been pushed back perhaps or something. But yeah, I mean, Adam, what do you think? Is it something to be worried about or is this an opportunity in your personal opinion, just completely in your opinion?
Well, I think it depends. To be honest, I think for people that have an existing website, especially for people that maybe have built websites for clients in the past, it could be a little terrifying because when you're using WordPress, there's no limits on what you can add to your website, right? And there's no restrictions on your choices. So you can literally sit there and add 100 different plugins to your website. And the challenge is you don't know if that plugin, the developer that made the plugin, has performance as even a priority. And so you have this freedom and flexibility. Same thing with page builders, right? You have these page building tools. You can put whatever you want on a page and it could be done completely in an inefficient way. And the thing is before Core Web Vitals, you get away with it, right? All you needed to do was some basic things, and all you had to pay attention to was one metric, right? Was that loading time. Obviously, there's other aspects, requests, and lots of technical things, but you really only had to pay attention to that main item, which is how long it takes for your website to load. But that's not the case with the Core Web Vitals. These 3 different Core Web Vitals hit multiple areas of what it takes to have a website, right? So now you can't get away with having like some crummy web hosting because one of these Core Web Vitals is solely based upon pretty much the performance of your web host, how fast it is to just have that, it's called TTFB, the time to first byte. And then if the web host has like a slow database connection, then your website is really slow to display. So you have to deal with that problem. And then there's another problem, and this is probably the biggest problem, is how long it takes for your website to be interactive. And that is how much stuff gets loaded every time someone visits your website. That's the one that's frustrating the most because if you have a plugin on your website or some kind of a tool on your website that just loads all kinds of stuff, even though it's not even being used, that negatively affects that. I'll give you the most basic example. Most people don't even realize that this is happening. For example, Gravity Forms is a form plugin. Most form plugins, unfortunately, are this way. And you put a form on your contact form page. Yet when someone goes to your homepage, the Gravity Form stuff loads, even though Gravity Forms isn't on your homepage. And that's just a tiny example. You have this happen with so many different plugins. They're just loading stuff whether it's being used or not. This was and this still is a big issue with Elementor add-ons. You add this Elementor add-on, and they're going to load a whole bunch of stuff whether you're using the add-on on all of the pages or not. It just loads all this stuff. So that's the most challenging one to deal with, is unloading those things, and it gets kind of technical. And then the third one is kind of easier to deal with, which is called cumulative layout shift. And that's when the page loads, do things move? Like I'm going to go click that button, but then something loads and it moves. You see this a lot on news related websites where they've got the video and then things are moving and jumping and popping around in advertisements. So It's actually kind of scary, to be honest. I think it's scary. I think it's a great opportunity as well because most businesses receive a massive benefit if they can get their website to rank on certain terms in Google. So there's a massive opportunity there. So I kind of see it both ways.
I'm scared based on what you just said, then, actually. So I was feeling quite relaxed about Core Web Vitals, but now I'm terrified. But I mean, from just the point you made about the plugins and that, Gravity Forms, I think WooCommerce is the same. It loads everything, whether you need it or not. And to be honest, it sounds like we're naming and shaming those plugins, but I would probably say that probably 95% of plugins do that at the moment. But Adam, you've got a couple of plugins. You've got Presto Player, you've just released Audible, you've got Cart Flows. Are you getting questions from your customers? Like, hey, can you make this faster? I mean, I know you have from Presto Player because I've requested things. But I mean, in general, are people talking to you about your plugins and saying, hey, can you do this to make this more performant at all? Is that happening?
Yeah, actually, well, the reason it's not is because we have a laser focus on performance already. So like in Presto Player, and that this goes back to the whole plugins of, do you know who made the thing that you put on your website? And do you know kind of their core their core values? I was about to say their core web vitals. What are their web vitals? No, you want to know what their values are. So like in the Presto Player example, we have in the settings, we have a little toggle switch to increase performance. So you can toggle this on and we explain what are the pros and cons of it. And it really has to do with if you have it off, it's going to just work perfectly on your website. If you have it on, it might require a little tweaking in, say, a caching plugin, or if you use a content delivery network for it to work right, just like a little tweak. So we have this focus on it. But I'll tell you, the other stuff is e-commerce based, right? One of the things I used to always talk about was, oh, yeah, you can have everything on a single website, right? So if you want to have an online learning platform or e-commerce, just have it all on one website and just get good hosting because you can get away with that. But with Core Web Vitals, I've changed my thinking. I mean, if it fits your situation, separate those out. If it fits your situation, and it doesn't fit every situation, but if it does, separate it out. So, for example, cart flows, we have in Presto Player and Audible. I'm doing the same thing on all of them. We want a lightning quick homepage that we want Google to love and Google to rank, right? We have content on there. We have some videos on there about the product. But when you go to buy it, it takes you to a different domain, a subdomain. So it's usually my dot whatever. And the reason, there's multiple reasons to do that, but the primary reason is performance. I don't want WooCommerce on my main domain anymore. I want WooCommerce elsewhere because WooCommerce loads stuff on every page as well, whether or not you're in like the e-commerce portion of it. So I think today I've totally shifted my thinking. I wouldn't do the same thing, like for example with e-learning. I wouldn't have e-learning on my main website. So I think you just have to ask yourself, my main website, is it important that Google shows this as an option when people are searching for things relevant to my website? Now, that's just my preference to make things easier. You can certainly have them all in the same place, but it requires a whole heck of a lot more work, for sure.
Yeah. Do you know what's funny? When I made my own website, which is just my personal website, I made that website as part of researching for a talk on Core Web Vitals with page builders, whereas creating a web page and just proving that you can hit all the scores with a good page builder that is performant if you do all the right things. And my website has a couple of videos on it, and using YouTube or Vimeo was completely out of the question. The only when I use those videos, because I wanted to do this test without a caching plugin. I didn't want to say, hey, look at this amazing test. But really all that's happened is I've just slapped a caching plugin on there and run it through Cloudflare or something. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to see what I really had with the things I'd got. And the only way I was able to achieve the scores with a video at the top was to use, it happened to be Presto Player, but basically, and then that was hooked up to BunnyNet and with the performance settings on that you have on your plugin. And that is not a plug for your plugin at all. Like, I'm under no orders here to say Presto Player is great, but it is great. I will say that. And it is performant as well. I mean, the ridiculous difference between Google's own product, YouTube, embedding a video on a site, which they want you to do.
Isn't that the irony, though, right? Isn't that like a huge irony? Like, they have YouTube, yet if you take a YouTube embed and pop it in your website, boom, it just kills things.
You failed. But you know what? I've got I know this is all like scary stuff, and everyone's, possibly watching this who doesn't have much time on their hands and saying, I don't have time to sort out the videos. I don't have time to sort this out. But let me talk through a quick report that I found on the web just the other day. Let me just pull it up on the screen, but I'll talk through it just so anyone listening isn't missing out on anything here. So let me just quickly share this tab here. Okay, there we go. Okay, right. There was a report done recently by a company called Search Metrics, who do a lot of these kind of reports, right? And they hired a bunch of experts, and they measured over 2 million URLs. And the 2 million URLs that they measured were websites that were in the top 20 of Google. So these websites were already performing in Google really, really well. The top 20, right? Out of the top 20 of these websites, 2 million of them, right? 4%, less than 4% passed the Core Web Vitals to a good score, which they tend to sort of say a good score is around 75%, right? So I know that everybody kind of looks at the scores and they're like, I need it to be 90, I need it to be 100 and all that sort of stuff. But the truth is, Google itself and all the people who are experts in this are saying, if you get around 75%, you've got some areas for improvement, but you're doing really good. Now, less than 4% of the top websites did it. So what they found in this report, which is really comforting actually, is that, yeah, you need to be concerned about it, but turn that concern into opportunity, because what Google cannot do is go, okay, it's Core Web Vitals Day, right? It was in May, it's now probably July or something like that, and go, right, boom. And then suddenly the best websites in the world that Google thought were really good all disappear out of Google, and a bunch of technical people like us who, spend hours making their one web page super fast suddenly end up at the top of Google. It's not going to work like that, because Google is, at the end of the day, a product in itself. And what Google needs to have is that when people go to websites and search something in Google, Google sends back a good list of different websites. So it's not going to instantly punish you, but if you flip it on its head, what it does mean is that, and I've heard you say this because you did a video on Core Web Vitals before. Let's say you're position 11 in Google or something like that. And this is just a made up scenario. You're position 11 and there's a couple of sites above you. There's one in position 8, 9, and 10. And you're in 11, you're like, I just cannot get to page 1. If, as far as Google is concerned, there's not a lot of difference between the 4 of your websites, and then you go and do something proactive, which could be including making the content better, or it could be making your website more performant, right? You've got a really good chance of hopping over those other websites, because Google is saying it will take this into account in a really serious way. But it's not going to say, oh, because you're the fastest website, you're number 1. It's not going to say that. But it's going to add to your good juice as such, that you are now a performant website and you're going to hop over those ones there. There's one more thing I would probably like to say to put people's minds at rest as well about Core Web Vitals, in terms of the whole the opportunity side of it, is that just doing a small thing like changing your hosting is the first step, and that is not a Cloudways pitch as well, but that is one thing that people can do if they're on shared hosting. Easy step, switch up to a VPS or something like that. Now that's a situation if you've already got a website. If you've got a situation where you have the possibility to build a brand new website from scratch, then I think it does come down to a lot of the tools you use. And Adam, you know, I'm a page builder guy. I'm actually a Beaver builder guy personally. You're not. You're well into the block editor, aren't you? And these kind of cadence theme and do you know
My preference is Gutenberg these days. Yeah.
Yeah, Gutenberg.
What's that?
Yeah. I heard a CEO from a hosting company the other day talking about their agency customers, right? And what they said was that a lot of them used to use tools like Elementor and Divi, and a lot of them have switched to Gutenberg. And what they're doing now is accidentally creating performant websites. Like they were accidentally creating bad performing websites before, but now they're accidentally creating fast websites that are perform. They just use different tools. I don't know what you think about, you know, the tools. Like, let's say you're a business owner, a website owner. Where would you start if you had a brand new project to go?
Yeah. Well, in some of these tools, Defense, not all of them, some of them, not all of them. I'll give the example of probably the most widely used page builder, which is Elementor, right? With 7 or 8 million websites. And I've known this about Elementor. So these page building tools have become so complex. They're like using Adobe Photoshop for photos. Like I go open up Adobe Photoshop and I don't even know what to do. I can maybe like export something and remove a background, but I can't do like 95% of the functions. I don't even know what to do with it. And that's what these tools have become. So even with Elementor, it's exactly that. And because you start from scratch with a blank slate, you just start dragging and dropping a bunch of things. People are actually doing it wrong. It kind of reminds me of when the iPhone 4 came out. I've got the 11 Max now, but when the iPhone 4 came out and everyone's like, I have bad reception. That's like people saying, I'm using Elementor and my websites are slow. And then Steve Jobs famously comes out and says, you're holding the phone wrong. Well, Elementor is now you're making your pages wrong. And so you're overusing rows and sections and columns and containers. You're overusing them. So unfortunately, the tools like Elementor, the right way of using it is, it's not absolute positioning. It's inline, right? It's inline. So instead of having columns and all this, you just have everything in line and you stretch them out. I hope I'm using the right word because I use wrong phrases sometimes. So you're building it wrong. You're doing it wrong. That's kind of their standpoint when they came out with a video series on website performance. So basically what I'm trying to say is you can still use these tools, but you have to use them in a more technical way and kind of know the impact of everything you add to your web page, what the implication is going to be. So, that's what it is for existing websites. But there are some basic things, like you said, that you can do, which is the first, like one of those 3 metrics is solely around web hosting. Try to get out of shared hosting if you can. And then there's other basic things that you can do to increase how long it takes for the page to load, which would be using, the most basic thing of optimizing your images, right? That's like super easy. And there's lots of free ways to do that. You don't even have to pay to do that. You can export them optimized. There's tools on your website that you can add that will optimize it and all of that. And then there's a content delivery. So you can add a content delivery network for pennies. And there's even the free one in Cloudflare. You can add Cloudflare and it's free and it's a content delivery network. So you don't even have to pay for that. And then of course, caching, but it's a rabbit hole. I think, people will go like on Facebook groups. They're like, oh yeah, look how fast my website is. And then you have all the people saying, well, what did you do? What did you do? It's just a rabbit hole and it's a lot more complicated than it needs to be when you're just have a website with a bunch of stuff on it. And now you got to do your best to make that stuff load fast. It's a rabbit rabbit hole, and it makes your website more delicate, like when you add caching and you start checking all those boxes without understanding what those boxes do, and now you've got a fragile website, and you're going to get contact form messages that say, hey, this is broken on your website, hey, I can't see the icons, hey, there's no styling on this page, because it becomes so fragile and so delicate, unfortunately. So you can do the basic stuff if you have an existing website. If you're starting off fresh and anew, definitely use the tools that have a reputation of being fast and optimized. And if you want to use something like Elementor, that's fine, but make sure you spend time being educated on how to do it right. And unfortunately, for years, Elementor themselves told everyone how to do it wrong. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to like get on their case, you know what I mean? But in their own tutorials, you use sections and columns for everything, when now it's like, don't do that. We don't want you using sections and columns. Now you just have to use the inline, put everything inline so you have less divs and containers. So anyways,
that makes a lot of
spiel.
sense. And I think in a way what you're kind of saying is, if you're going to use a tool like Elementor, they may have given you 500 widgets to play with that do all sorts of crazy things all over the page, but don't use them unless you really need to. Because the core vitals thing, here's the thing, right? I think what a lot of people think is that if you get a bad score, let's say you get a good score, your ranking will go up. And if you get a bad score, your ranking will go down. And it's not about the scores, because Google has never, ever revealed exactly what makes something go up and down. So those scores that we see on the pages, what they tell us is that if your site is slow, your site has some things moving around when it loads, and your site takes a long time for users to get to the point where they can interact. And what Google knows from their billions and billions of website visitors is that a slow website that takes a while to interact with and has things moving that you're trying to click makes people go back to the search engine result that they were just on, right? So basically, what in some ways it's
and that's measured against your site too, the bounce rate. Yeah,
it's a bounce. So basically, if someone comes on your site and either bounces or doesn't stay in it very long because it's so slow, then Google knows that, and that's the actual factor that is going to rank you down. So the vitals are really a way for you to understand, hey, my site is technically quite good. It's quite good for people, and it's quite good for Google. And that's I think the most important thing to know. But yeah, if you use an Elementor or Divi or something like that, where they have given you lots and lots of design options, just try and stay simple and think about your end users. Do they really need a slider at the top? Do they really need some flip boxes underneath? And do they really need 5 pop-ups happening all over the place? Probably not. So, put the tools down and step away from the widgets and just go simple and
simple.
I think,
that's what sorry, not to cut you off, but that's what I like. Less moving parts. That's what I like about Gutenberg, right? I think our human nature is to overcomplicate something. And I've said this many times over the years, the hardest thing is to make something simple. I guess that's one of the things I've always appreciated about your design work. I've seen some of the websites you've designed for different companies and brands, and it always had a simplicity to it. And I'll tell you, for me, I gravitate more towards the simplicity, but then when it comes time for me to like open up the tool and create, I don't make it simple myself. So it's like definitely a discipline, right? That people need to learn to, not put things there. It doesn't have to have all this fancy motion and graphics. I mean, we're not Nike and we're not trying to, sell shoes and stuff like that. Or we don't have to compete with that fancy new, like high-end brand with a, huge development staff. Simple is better.
Yeah, it's funny. Just briefly to reference what you said about my design. The funny thing is, I'm a total one-trick pony when it comes to design. I can only do simple. Even if someone was like, hey, can you do like a really artistic design and I'll pay you quadruple your normal rate? I'd be like, I really want to. But that's just, so I work with the tools that I've got. But, keeping things simple has always worked well for me, both on a performance situation. But I'd want to quickly move on to anyone who's watching who might be an agency or a freelancer, for instance, and they're talking to their clients, and their clients are contacting them and saying, "Hey, I just got an email from someone, and they've sent me this huge report. It's like 15 pages long, and it's got like red ink all over it saying this is slow, this is no good, and my website's going to derank and all this sort of stuff. And they want to charge me $1,500 to do an audit, and then they want to charge some more money to fix it. And I really think I should do it. But hey, you're my freelancer, you're my agency. Why have you let this happen?" That is something anyone who is a freelancer or an agency, that does happen on a regular basis. And I think that Core Web Vitals is always an opportunity for these kind of scam artists to come in and do that. And I've been talking to a lot of people in the whole agency world. It's one of the sort of circles that I hang around in. And one of the things that we've been talking about a lot in there is, how do we deal with this? So we know that, they're going to get panicked about this because people are going to upset them and send them these reports. What do we do about it? And the general consensus that we found with the people who are doing well out of this, right, is to do some kind of preemptive measures, like a kind of pre-strike on the attack that is coming your way. And one of the things that seems to have worked out really well for people is, first of all, just simply communicating to your clients who you've done websites for before they get these emails. Hey, guess what? There's this thing called Core Web Vitals, and most people think it's something you should really worry about. And, you might get some emails from people who are trying to panic you. But guess what? Only 4% of the top 2 million websites in the world are even passing them. So if the top 20 websites in the search results only 4%, what do you think the next 20 websites down the search engines are getting? So hey, here's the thing, Mr. Client or Mrs. Client. We've got an opportunity here. How about we do some work on your website and improve its Core Web Vitals? And if you do a care plan with that client, then some of that could be included, but you can have a bit of an upsell that gives them some more options to go deeper and do some more things. Maybe upgrade the hosting, get a CDN in place, optimize the images, have a talk with them if they're managing their own pages. Hey, let's do a retraining session. Let's look at how you're doing these pages. I've noticed you using sliders. Let's stop using the sliders, because look at the difference it makes to your scores. You can do some of those things. And I think the trick that people have been doing is writing emails, booking calls with their clients to really have a face-to-face talk about this. And the only problem is that people like me are too lazy to do it, right? That's the thing. We're just like, yeah, that's a fantastic idea. So if you've got time, do it. Write some emails to your clients, book calls with them, and speak to them about this issue before they get panicked, and turn it into something that you can actually make some money out of and give them some good value in exchange, right? But if you don't have time for that, one of our sort of friends in the community has got a product, and I'm just going to pull that link up on there. Let me just find it. It's called Funnel Packs. So there is a chap and his wife in the community called Matt and Mel, and they've created this series of what they call funnel packs, right? And what a funnel pack is a landing page, a set of emails, so an email sequence that you hook into your software like MailChimp or MailerLite or something like that, and a what do you call it, a kind of downloadable PDF that you can send to them. And so what you're basically doing is doing a kind of preemptive strike and educating your clients and showing that, number one, you know about this thing that's come in, and number two, you've created a PDF about it, so you must be an expert. And then you can send them like a series of emails on there that helps them to understand the problem and not panic about it, and then come back to you rather than the scam artist to solve those problems. So if anyone's interested in that, go to WPCrafter.com/speed. That'll take you over to Matt and Mel's website, Funnel Packs, and you can just check out what's there. You can see some examples. If you use Cartflows, for instance, they also have these add-on products called sales boosters or something. I forget what they're called actually. But for the people who are doing really well with this, have completely turned it on their head. and are going, right, instead of just sort of dealing with the panic, they're saying, right, let's create a product called Speed Optimization. It's a new product for our agency now. It's Core Web Vitals Optimization or something like that. Create a landing page with a sales funnel and a checkout. I think the checkout that they integrate it with is Thrivecart, which is a SaaS-based product, and then the other one they integrate with is your product. I don't even know if you know about this.
I didn't. I didn't know actually. I know we had talked a couple years ago.
Yeah. So basically, when the sales pack, the one that has the checkout, so a client can actually pay for it, integrates with Thrivecart and Cartflows, because those tended to be the most popular options the agency users were using. So for agencies, like, again, we'll come back to this topic, I think, in the future. But again, don't panic, but do get ahead of the scam artists and do basically communicate with your clients, give them options, and move forward on that basis. I think we should probably, unless you've got anything else.
Actually, I want to add a thought to that. I think it's important to understand the fluidity of what we're all doing with having websites or making websites for someone. It's fluid. It will always be fluid. What works today might not work tomorrow. What is fine today might not be fine tomorrow. So we have to understand this as people that own websites. So even this Core Web Vitals, it's a very fluid thing. But when you are making websites for clients, I guess that's the crucial point of getting them on some form of a regular care plan where you're that person for them and you're doing something monthly for them. Not only does it help your agency with predictable income, but I guess it's how do you frame having a website to your customers that come to you for a website? Do you frame it as having a website isn't a one and done thing. It is fluid. It requires maintenance. Things change, styles change, what works changes. And so when you're with me and you're paying this $100 a month, it's not just hosting. It's not just me updating things and keeping things safe. We also keep tabs on the fluidity of things where we can say proactively, hey, we might want to change this aspect of your website because there's some things coming that might end up hurting your rankings in Google. As it relates to performance. So it's just the only idea that I wanted to add to wrap this kind of segment of the show up was the fluidity of things. And that's why we have this show, right? That's why we have WP Crafter Unscripted now, because this is a very fluid thing, having websites, and it requires conversations like this to be informed and to maximize it and the opportunity that it has. That's all.
That's a nice way to lead into our next segment, Adam, which is the plugin fight. And that's why I've taken my glasses off, because you can't hit a guy with glasses on. Actually, that doesn't work. I've completely done it the other way around, shouldn't I? I should put my glasses back on. And then
so I wouldn't hit you.
We're not really having fisticuffs anyway. We're it's just a bit of fun that we thought we would do, where we could relate, two plugin scenarios to the subject that we're talking about. And this week we're going to talk about two performance plugins. And I think I'm going to go with, in the red corner, Perf Matters, a plugin called Perf Matters. I think it's perfmatters.com. And I think you were going to take WP Rocket, which is one of the most popular caching and script minimizing solutions out there. So there's also some rules of engagement in the plugin fight, because I think one of the problems that we realize about the concept of plugin fight is that we often like both the plugins, and this is a situation that we've got today. I like Perf Matters and I like WP Rocket. There are free alternatives to each of them. So the rules of engagement here is that, Adam, you're taking WP Rocket, I'm taking Perf Matters, but we've only got enough money to buy one of them. So who wants to go first? Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first? Because this is totally
I'll go
unscripted.
first.
I don't think we even prepared properly for this part.
Yeah, we just knew that we would pit these two plugins against each other. So WP Rocket is primarily caching, and I think caching you need before you need some of the performance tweaks that you would get out of perf matters. So like, when you have like this hierarchy of needs, like they call it, what is it called? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I need water before I need food, or I think I need water at the same time. But you need water, you need food, you need sleep. Yeah, so when it comes to like performance of your website, you know what I mean? Perf matters is like way up on that higher hierarchy, right? Which is like maybe, I don't know what to relate it to. Caching is like in WP Rocket, and what it does is like further down on that hierarchy of needs that your website has when it comes to caching. But the thing about WP Rocket is that it's more than just caching. Caching is like one component. There's caching, there's minification of scripts. I don't think Perf Matters does either. They don't do caching. They don't do minimizing, minifying, or whatever it's called. Then it has deferring of scripts, which helps with the one of the core web vitals about when you can interact. That's unloading. That's deferring some scripts. I think, is that CLS? Anyway, it doesn't matter. And then they actually just added something. I've been wanting to make a video on it, but I tested it and I didn't like the results. Did you know that they added unloading CSS? So what they do, and they just added this, and it's brand new, but it's in beta. So you enable the feature, their servers are going to come to your website, and they're going to say, this is all the CSS that actually loads that you need. And all this over here you don't need. So then it's going to make it so the stuff that isn't needed doesn't get loaded at all. So I think, and there's actually very few tools that do that. I think there might be only like one other tool that does that. And they were quite proud of that feature. So I think as far as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, your website's hierarchy of needs, you got a WP Rocket type of solution, but there's also free ones as well for caching if you didn't want to buy WP Rocket, and I totally get that. When you get Cloudways, you get Breeze, and Breeze is good, but it's just going to do the caching pretty much, and it doesn't have quite as much control of the other things. But then to flip it on its head, if you use hosting that has a light speed server, so we use NameHero. We don't have a little card, but it's WPCrafter.com/NameHero. It takes like 70% off. You get to use the free light speed caching plugin that does a lot of these things too. So I would say to someone, if you only had a certain amount of money and if you can have one or the other, you would want to go with the one that meets the bigger need first.
Well, it's difficult to fight Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Adam. I feel like I should pull in some kind of famous philosopher who talked about perf matters or something like that. But no, I've got nothing. But yeah, no, I can see your point. WP Rocket does a lot of things. It cleans up a lot of mess. It has this new feature. I think the thing you're talking about, this new feature, was something I was reading about just yesterday. Is it this critical CSS thing?
It's not critical CSS. That's been there. No, this is like they take the whole page. So like if you're someone that uses like Divi, you're going to really benefit because Divi has one CSS file. It's a problem with Divi. They know about it. They've been open about it. They have one CSS file and it's gigantic, and that thing loads whether you need 10% of it or 100% of it.
Got it. Because I've seen in the Google tests, when you do these tests, when you go deeper into the Lighthouse tests and see what's going on with that, you can see that you get really penalized for waste. That's one of the things that you get. There's two things. I know I'll come back to Perf Matters, but I just remembered something. There's two things that I saw in the scores that really hit you for waste, and one of them is, hey, you got a CSS script that's 100 kilobytes. But your site is only using 10 kilobytes of the scripts that are in that file. That's waste. Why are you doing that? And Google marks you down quite seriously on that. The other thing as well that I noticed Google really shockingly marks you down on is when there's one of the buttons you can press. I can't remember what button it is, but when you're on the results page, you can press a button and you can change things. So you can simulate, hey, if my website loaded a bit faster in that, what would my score be? And you can drag these sliders. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I only found it.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so you can move sliders around to sort of see, right, if I manage to move the needle a bit and went up on my, reduce my cognitive shift or whatever, I would get from score 75 to 78. Now, the time to first byte, which is, like we say, hosting, basically, most of the time, it's the DNS and the hosting. 10 milliseconds is 1% in your scores. 10 milliseconds. And most of the other sliders, you kind of like chug, 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 and it's 1%. Chug, 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 1%. Time to first byte, one tiny little shift, 10%. Sorry, 1% is gone. And you're like, wow, that time to first byte and then the wastage things are two super things. Sorry, back to the plugin fight. See, when I was at school...
That's what we're doing. We're supposed to be fighting.
I talked my way out of every single fight that came my way. I never had a fight at school. I just talked my way out of everything. Do you know what? I've never had a fight, a real one, in real life. But anyway, back to...
I actually haven't either. I have a brother. He might have hit me once or something, but he was bigger than me. I didn't do anything.
Yeah. No, yeah, I was the big brother. So, yeah, I've had those sort of fights with the little ones. But... yeah, sorry about that to my brother and sister. But yeah, perf matters, right? It is a different kettle of fish. I think that Dopey Rocket works if you can only buy one, right? And you've got a website and you're not too sure what's going on. You don't actually have time to deal with stuff. Then I think it's a good choice. So I'll give you that. Now, you put perf matters way up here on the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? And I disagree with you on that in certain scenarios. So my website, I've got I've got an annual thing with Dopey Rocket and I've got an annual thing with Perf Matters. So I know both of them. And I only recently in the last sort of 6 months picked up Perf Matters after seeing some other sort of experts in the industry using it and talking about it. Now, if you are a professional building websites as an agency and your angle is, I really want these websites to be built great from the ground up, then what Perf Matters does is it's more complicated than Dopey Rocket for sure. But what it does do, it allows you to control every single thing that's loading into the page. So that thing you said earlier about, let's say you've got Gravity Forms, right? So if you use Gravity Forms on your site, then with Perf Matters, you can say, there's only one page on this website that uses Gravity Forms, and you can tell your site to only load the scripts about Gravity Forms on the one page where you've got the form, and Dopey Rocket doesn't do that for you, yet it might do in the future. So if you are...
Actually, on that, let me tell you, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Go for it.
I was on Twitter. And I look on Twitter. I don't interact in Twitter. And so there was it was either promoted or someone that I follow, and I don't follow a lot of people. It was suggested, and it was WP Rocket saying this new thing I was talking about with the CSS. And I left a comment, and I'm like, gee, that's great. You should also add in the ability to not have scripts loaded on a page-by-page basis. What Perf Matters does, right? Because I'm thinking, why can't they just add that feature and then you wouldn't need Perf Matters? They got really defensive with me, like when I did that, when I said that, like they acted like they didn't even know what that was. Of course they know what that is, but they got really defensive with me. Anyways, you can actually go to Twitter and see the interaction.
Well, I'm not going to give you that point that basically you suggested it to them and they haven't done it yet. So I'm gonna take that as, you are an influencer, so it is possible that they will listen to that. But I think it is a complicated thing for them to do because I think that Perf Matters is a good product if you're a professional, right? And if Dopey Rocket put the functionality of Perf Matters into Dopey Rocket, they would probably triple or quadruple their support requests because people would be not knowing what they're doing, ticking every box, and everything would be going kind of wrong for them. So Perf Matters,
it is dangerous.
The argument for Perf Matters is you know what you're doing, you're performance focused from day one when you're starting this brand new website, and you can control everything that's loading into the page. One of the things that is big loader is font awesome, right? Font files and stuff like that are icon files. If you're not using icons, but your theme is forcing font awesome in there, you can turn it off. So I think that, this is one of those plugin fights where if I've got the money, I'm going to say I'm buying Perf Matters because I am a professional, right? And I'm going to use Breeze from Cloudways. I'm going to use the free plugin from Breeze. So I don't know what I guess you're going to choose Dopey Rocket and just stick with that, or have I managed to
Well,
persuade
no,
you? What do you
actually,
think?
I'm super practical, and I hope it comes across in my videos that I'm practical. So I'll make a video and I'll be like, yeah, here's these paid options, but here's these free options. They're maybe not as good as the paid, but it's good enough instead of having to come out of pocket, right? I'm a very practical person, so actually the advice I give on the channel is to use a web hosting service that gives you the caching so that you don't need to buy the caching. And then that would free up the resources to do something like that. Now, there's also to go against perf matters. That's one of their marquee features, right? Which is the script manager is what they call it. But they have all kinds of optimizations as well. But that's their marquee feature. There's also a free alternative to that, but it's super technical and not
really
as
difficult
friendly.
to use.
It's very difficult to use, which is Asset Manager Pro. I've actually talked to the guy. His name is I think his name's Glenn. He's a really nice guy. And what you were talking about, where you have that feature and it generates a ton of support. He's like, I get so much support. Someone just checks the wrong thing. Yeah. These are complicated tools. It's not for the average user type of thing. But yeah, there's a free option to that as well. So I always want people to not feel like they have to buy a bunch of subscriptions to things. But then in the case of an agency, you just get these unlimited licenses, and then you charge this service of a couple $100 to do this. And I'll just disclose, I use WP Rocket and Perf Matters.
Same.
Yeah.
I use them both. They're both brilliant. But okay, we've been going for over an hour, which was longer than we thought. So I think we should probably wrap it up, because we've got stuff. We're coming back here every single week. So I really enjoyed this today, Adam. I don't know if we want to say thank you to our sponsor again, Cloudways. Go to cloudways.com. You can find out about their VPS stuff there. And Adam, is there anything you wanted to say to finish up before we sign off for the day?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for joining us for episode 0. And what we're actually going to try to do is get this to be like 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes max, 40 to 50 minutes max, because we know everybody has stuff to do. This is a holiday weekend where us Americans celebrate our independence from you Brits. But, we can all come together and... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But we can all get along. So I want you guys to know I appreciate you coming today, and also that we're going to be here every week, and this will also be an audio experience. But there's also something in it for you, right? WIIFM, other than getting to listen to me and Paul, what's also going to be in it, one, we'll have some experts on every now and then, but it's not like some pitch fest where someone comes out with a product and we bring them here to just talk about the product. That's not what this show is. This is just, hey, let's have these conversations about things that are important to all of us. But the exciting thing is, show up next week. We're going to be having giveaways. We're fortunate that I have a couple product companies, so I can easily give those things away as giveaways. So we're going to start our first official giveaway next week in next week's episode, and we'll try to have giveaways regularly, whether it be every other week or once a month. We'll have some nice, generous giveaways. Makes it easy, right? I've got Presto Player, just launched Orderable, I have Cart Flows, and I'm actually coming out with 2 more products this year that no one knows about, but you'll probably hear about it first here on the channel, and have a lot of friends that can give us free stuff to give away. So show up next week for that. We're going to be live here every Friday on YouTube.
And I've got nothing to give away, so it's a good job that you've got a lot of good stuff there. So yeah. So
you know what I was
going to giveaways. Yeah.
You know what I was thinking, because obviously we're going to make this audio, throw it on the website, put up some show notes. We should write out a response for agencies to copy and paste and send to their clients when they say, hey, why is my website so slow in these things? A nice, well-written response so someone can just copy and paste it and get that conversation started if they didn't have the resources to grab like a funnel pack or something like that.
Great idea. Something dead simple. Just a quick email to invite, something that gets someone to book a call, and that's it. Take it from there, kind of thing. Yeah, I think we can definitely do that, Adam. That sounds great.
Yep.
So yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. Episode 0's in the bag, as they say.
We did it.
We did it. We did it. And we only had the camera go out once.
That's right. And we'll be back next week. So look forward to seeing.
Oh, we had a dog bark. That was a dog bark.
Barking now, yeah. There you go.
Pull your dog in real quick, and then we'll sign off.
Come here.
She said this dog is in love with Paul. It's their family dog. She has to be right there with him all the time. I'm fortunate. My dog latched onto my wife. So even though he's with me when she's not here, that's the kind of the role you play. You're like mommy and daddy, huh?
Honestly, right? If you ever watch this back, you'll see for the last 5 minutes, if you wondered why my arm was going up and down, I was messing. My dog was down there and she was like, "Hey, can I have some attention?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"In a few minutes, you can have some attention." Yeah, don't worry, we've already gone over the hour. I'll be with you in a minute. But yeah, this is Ellie. She's a Cavapoo. She's absolutely gorgeous, and she's my best friend as well. So she follows me everywhere. It's brilliant.
Yes. Well, thanks for sharing her.
She always gets on the podcasts. Yeah.
Yes, and why not? I love dogs too. We're all dog lovers around here. So perfect way to sign off on the show. Thanks everyone for joining, and we will see you next week. We're looking forward to it. See you guys then.
See you later. Bye-bye.